Hello, everybody. It is me, Blake. Welcome back. And today I have another interview. It is with, he still wrestles today. He is former NWA, AWA, WCW, Georgia Championship Wrestling. He's wrestled in Jim Crockett Promotions. He's wrestled in many other companies. And GCW, he's also wrestled for. He has also wrestled for Impact Wrestling and still does today. Here and there, he makes appearances for Impact and wrestles. He still wrestles to this day. He's a great competitor in the ring now. That the age he is Action Mike Jackson. So I'm going to put him on in here, and then we will start. Hello.
Blake, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. I'm real blessed.
Yeah. I'm glad you could take your time out and do this interview with me.
Well, my pleasure. Glad to do it.
All right. So I'm going to start off by asking you my first question. When did you start doing wrestling and what made you want to do it?
The first time I ever saw a professional wrestling match, I was 8 years old. And I lived in a little bitty town. And of course, they didn't have all the cable and everything they have nowadays, but it came on one of our local TV channels. I saw it. I couldn't even tell you who the wrestlers were. But when I saw it from the first time, I was hooked on it. Got away from it for a little while, moved to Birmingham, Alabama, which is a big town here in Alabama. They had wrestling every Monday night, NWA, Nick Gulas. I don't know if anybody remembers that name, but when Nick Gulas was a promoter, I started going to Boutwell Auditorium every Monday night and up to Channel 42, where they had the live matches on Saturday night for TV that led into the Monday night matches. And one thing led to another, and I got involved in it. Loved it.
Yeah. What was the age that you were when you officially knew that you wanted to become a wrestler?
8 years old. When I first saw it, I definitely wanted to do it right there. But I got away from it for a little while because my dad was a pastor at a church, and we moved from different locations, and I was not able to watch it as much as I did. But when we moved into Birmingham in 1964, I believe it was, we're right there in Birmingham, like I told you, Boutwell Auditorium every Monday night. Nick Gulas, NWA, and started going down there. So really, I guess when I was maybe a junior in high school or a senior in high school, I really, really got into it a lot more because I was able to have a car drive and go to the shows and, see the wrestlers and hang around and that kind of thing. So I would say maybe 16, 17.
Yeah. When you watched wrestling as a kid, who was your favorite wrestler growing up, and who did you watch? Who did you inspire you?
You're talking about when I was a kid. Blake, that was a long time ago. You know that now, right? That wasn't yesterday. When I first started watching wrestling, you're probably not going to remember names. You're too young, but now people out there may remember names like Tojo Yamamoto, Lynn Rossi, Bearcat Brown, Mario Milano, Corsica Joe, Blue Infernos, Gypsy Joe. Those guys were the big names at Boutwell Auditorium. So I guess Lynn Rossi was probably my favorite. He helped me a lot in my career and got me going. That's when I was a kid. But after I grown up, there's a lot more guys I respect that have helped me a lot over the years. But those are the early guys when I was going and buying a ticket to sit on the second row every Monday night to watch it. Lynn Rossi and Tojo and those guys were the men.
For sure. Who is your favorite wrestler nowadays in the business?
Well, he really just passed away. Bullet Bob Armstrong, AWA. He is WWF Hall of Famer. He is big in this area. I live in the South, and the Armstrong name is big in the anywhere in the Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Mississippi area. And he was probably my all-time favorite. He passed away it's probably about a little over a year ago. but he still wrestled until he was about 80 something years old. Still did shows.
Yeah. Who were your wrestling trainers?
You know what? This is an odd situation. I trained a lot of guys, and I still train guys today, but nobody ever trained me. The way I got into it was I went up to Boutwell Auditorium, like I told you, up to the Channel 42 on Saturday nights to watch it on the TV taping, and I met a young guy there that was the son of the referee that refereed all the matches for Monday night and Saturday night. We got to be good friends. He went off to college, and I was there, so I set the ring up. I kept time. This was probably when I was probably 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Parked cars in a parking lot, made a few dollars, but I was around all the wrestlers, and I trained myself. I just watched these other guys, what they were doing, and then I would get in the ring, and I would flip myself, and I would run the ropes, and I never had anybody ever give me a single wrestling lessons or wrestling holds or anything. I did it pretty much.
Wow.
I just watched and learned.
That's good. Was there anybody family-wise that inspired you to get into wrestling?
Absolutely not. My dad, like I said, my dad was a pastor. We moved around, and matter of fact, none of them ever thought I could make it. I was pretty small growing up, and nobody ever really gave me a chance to become a big-time professional wrestler. But I didn't have anybody in my family that was ever they weren't discouraging. They just didn't encourage it a lot because they had a lot of different things. And, I was smart enough. I was in college when I didn't do anything in the wrestling business as far as wrestling until I was probably second year, third year in college. I wanted a degree because I know this business has a lot of quirks, and I know there's a lot of mysterious background to it and all this and a lot of magic. But I knew I was going to get hurt sooner or later, and I wanted to have something to fall back on in case I got injured and I couldn't do it anymore. So I got 2 master's degrees, taught school for a while, wrestled on the side, but then quit all of that to go full time.
Yeah. Who would you say has been the stiffest wrestler you've gone in the ring with?
Well, now, probably the roughest, toughest, stiffest guys that I ever worked with were 2 French guys named Pierre Bonnet and Frenchie Pierre. I don't know what happened to them. They were in the Memphis territory when I was in the Memphis territory for Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler. And I don't know. I probably have not seen them it's probably been 40 years, 50 years ago. Because I've been in the business 54. So I probably haven't seen them for at least 45 or 50 years. I don't know. I'm sure they don't do anything. May not even be alive. But they were pretty stiff. They were the kind of guys that if you saw your name against them on TV or something, you told the guy that you didn't feel good that day and you had an injury and you may not be able to wrestle. Did that a couple of times.
Wow. Were you ever in school or amateur wrestling as a kid?
No, I did not, because here in Alabama, it's not big in the high schools. Very few high schools have it. Probably maybe 20% or 25% of the schools in the whole state of Alabama even have any amateur wrestling. They just don't do it. They have football, basketball, everything, every other sport, golf, even fishing, bowling. They got everything known to man, but very few schools in the South have. It's big up north, but it's not big down here in the South as far as high school and amateur. So I never did an amateur match in my life. I wrestled a lot of good amateur wrestlers like Les Thornton, Tony Charles, some of Buzz Sawyer, some of those guys, but never ever had a lesson in amateur wrestling.
What do you consider to be your weakness and then strength in wrestling?
Probably my weakness, I'm small. I've always been small. When I got in the business, I didn't weigh but 145. But Blake, you got to go back. If you go back to when I started, my first match was June of 1972. Nobody was big like they are nowadays. I mean, there was an Andre the Giant come along and some of those kind of guys, but everybody, a big guy in those days was probably 210, 220, 225 was big. Now 270 is average weight for these guys. So I guess my biggest weakness would be that I was small, and but I like to work with the bigger guys. I work with guys 300-400 pounds, but they were slower. So my strength would have been my speed and the agility that I have. You know, I'm not, I'm not going to try to brag about anything, but
Yeah.
my is my speed, and I was doing things. I'm doing things 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that guys are doing now, thinking they got all this. Flying head scissors, Hurricanrana head scissors. I was doing all jumping through ropes, walking top ropes. I was doing all that 30 years ago. And these guys think that they got all the credit for it. I was doing it 30 years ago. I was guys like Hector Guerrero. I mean, he was doing these moves. He and I wrestled a lot together. We were doing these moves before these guys ever thought about these moves. So I guess I would say weakness would be small size, but strength would be speed.
Yeah. Is it hard traveling from show to show, and what is the worst thing about traveling?
Well, when I was young, I loved to travel. I mean, it was good. Now the roads are hard. I mean, it's long trips now. When I was in the Memphis territory for Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jett, when they split up and Nick Gulas went to Nashville side and Jerry went to Memphis side, trips were unbelievably long. Monday night you'd be in Memphis, Tennessee. Tuesday night you're in Louisville, Kentucky. That's all the way from across one state to the other state.
Oh, wow.
It was the travel. And now that I'm older, and don't like to travel, don't see that good at night anymore, things like that. You don't like to travel. But in the younger days, I didn't mind the traveling so much. It just wears you down. It really does. You get an injury, you have to make that next trip the next day. You don't have overtime pay. You don't have hospital pay. You don't have insurance pay. You don't work, you don't get paid. Bottom line, that's the way it was back in the day. So the trips really were tough, but when you were injured and stuff, and they're pretty long nowadays, but I still make a lot of them. I still go all over the country. If whoever calls, I go.
Yeah. Who was your first opponent in front of a crowd, and how did you feel going into that first match?
The first match I had was in June of 1972 in a little town called Winfield, Alabama, right outside of Birmingham, about an hour and a half. My opponent was a young guy named the Blue Inferno. Don't even know it. I don't even know. I'm not sure I would even know his name. That's been so long ago. And going into it, I was excited as a kid at Christmas with a brand new bicycle. I mean, I've been waiting for this kind of stuff for a long time because, see, back in the day, Blake, guys don't understand this. It's easy to get into wrestling now. I mean, everybody throws on a pair of kick pads and tennis shoes and gym shorts and they're wrestling. That's not the way it was back in the day. Back in the day, it was very hard. It's a very secretive business. It was a family. If you weren't part of it, you were just extricated out the side of it. And for me to get into it was not real easy. So when I finally got my break and got into it, man, I was hog heaven, as the old saying goes. I loved it.
Yeah. How did the crowd react to you when they seen you for the first time in your first match?
Well, the good thing was the crowd wasn't very big. It was just a little independent show. We call them around here, and you may have heard this term before. We call them around here outlaw shows. We have the independent shows, we have outlaw shows, we have the big time like WWE Impact or whatever. But these were pretty small shows, and there wasn't a lot of people there. And so, you just kind of getting your feet wet, but it didn't make any difference if there was 3 there or 500. I was fired up and ready to go. And, I know I'm old right now. I'm 73. I'll be 74 in about 3 or 4 weeks, but I still hunger for it. And that's what I train guys. When I teach guys, I'm booked this weekend. And I'm as excited, and it's a local show here, but I'm as excited. But the next week I'm at GCW. I'm in Atlanta at the GCW show. So I do any show for anybody, but I treat them all the same. I mean, I'm hungry for this stuff. I know I don't have a lot of years left to do it, maybe not even a lot of days left to do it. But hey, I'm as excited as I was. I'm as excited for this match coming up on Saturday as I was the first match in 1972.
For sure. If you could go back in time and wrestle anyone that has passed away, who would that be?
Passed away. I'm not really sure of anybody I could think of passed away. But if I could wrestle anybody, if I had my choice of anybody that's still going today, Rey Mysterio. I would love to wrestle Rey Mysterio one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is someone you would like to wrestle that you've already been in the ring with?
I've had some great matches with Ric Flair. They're on YouTube. I've had some great matches with guys like Arn Anderson. Best match I ever had in my life was with a guy, and I don't know if you keep up with Texas wrestling when it was big with the Von Erichs, but there was a guy there by the name of the Rock and Roll RPMs, Alan Martin. The best match I've ever had in my life was at a high school here in Alabama in front of a tremendous big crowd. Road Dogg was there, drew a big crowd, and the best match I've ever had. I mean, it was just wrestling with him. This business is a funny business. I hope some young wrestlers are out there listening to this podcast, because this business is a funny business. Everybody don't have natural ability. Some guys have to work very, very hard to do what they're doing today. Then there's guys like Alan Martin, Brad Armstrong. I don't know if you remember Brad Armstrong, but he was with WCW, Georgia Championship, Southeastern. He had natural ability. I wrestled him the first match he ever had. When I locked up with him, it was like he'd been a 20-year veteran. So, everybody in this business, it's like everything else, doesn't have natural ability. Some have to work hard at it.
For sure. Who would you number down to your 3 top favorite opponents?
Alan Martin would be number 1, probably. I would probably think Brad Armstrong would probably be number 2. And I'd probably say maybe Ric Flair number 3. Those are guys I've had great matches with. I had a match with Ric Flair on Atlanta TV in 1988, I believe. It's called the Schick Match of the Week. I don't know if you saw, but I put him in the figure 4. I suplexed him over the top rope. Scared me to death. I thought I'd kill the world champion. That was probably one of my greater matches. So I'd love to work with Ric Flair. I know he probably won't do many more matches in his lifetime, but if I ever could, because he was another one of those guys like Brad Armstrong with natural ability. He was a true world champion. I wrestled Lou Thez, another world champion, but they were 2 entirely different kind of styles. So I like the Flair style a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Flair did say he does want another retirement match. So,
well, I wish it would be with me, but I imagine he'll shoot for bigger fish.
Probably.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame him.
Do you usually get along or become friends with most of your opponents?
Blake, especially at my age, it's a business. I'm not inviting them fishing. I'm not pen pals with everybody. I don't call them every day to see how you're doing. To me, it's a business. I go, I do my job. I don't know who I'm wrestling at GCW in Atlanta next week at the center stage. I don't care. I'm just going to go and I'm going to do my job and I'll be done. To me, like I said, it's like when I was teaching school, I didn't call all the teachers when I went home and see how they were doing. I worked with them all day. I'm ready to go home and be void of them for a while. I'll see them the next day. So I get along with everybody because I'm an easygoing guy. I make things easy. I'm easy to work with. I'm not a head case. I'm not, I don't ask for millions of dollars and 5-star hotels and all this kind of stuff, so I'm easy to get along with. And, I just try to do my job, do what I'm supposed to do and leave.
Yeah. If you could make a Survivor Series match, including you with 4 current wrestlers, who would you choose as your partners?
Probably have that go Rey Mysterio for 1. Johnny Swinger for 2. I like Johnny Swinger. He's a good wrestler. I like Swinger. And if I'd get 1 more, I'd probably have to take Alan Martin. He's talented. Yeah. Can't wrestle anymore, but he was so talented.
For sure. Would you rather be in a street fight or death match?
I've not done too many of those ever, even when I was full-time. And they had to, I wrestled back in the territory days when you wrestled every night of the week. So I was with a territory. That was my first full-time job in Tennessee with the territories. But I've not been in many death matches, and I've not been in many street fight type matches because I'm pretty much what they call a curtain jerker. I wrestle the first match or the second match. Even when I run shows, I do a lot of fundraisers around Alabama for schools and bands and football teams and different things. I'm usually the second match. I'm not a main event person, and most of those kind of matches were made for the big time guys, the main event guys. And I've been in a few cage matches and a few lumberjack matches and things like that, but never too many street fights. I've been in a few, but not enough that I could make anything out of it.
Yeah. Would you rather be in a blindfolded match, handcuffed to your opponent match, or a dog collar?
You know what? I've been in a blindfold match before. Now, they used to do blindfold battle royals all the time, and that wasn't too much fun. Dog collar, that might be the best one of those three that you gave me. That's not too many good options there. So I might take dog collar there because that way you can at least see your opponent and he can't get far away because he's tied to you.
Yep. Is there any piece of merch that you have or had that is sold out pretty quickly?
Yeah, I do a lot of merchandise. I'm fortunate. I'm blessed on the merchandise. I have my own T-shirts. I have DVDs. I have some great DVDs that High Spots out of Charlotte, North Carolina makes for me. And I've got really five different DVDs. But I've got a shoot interview, and they sell pretty good. But T-shirts are probably my best item. I have my own personalized T-shirts and pictures with me and some of the different wrestlers I've wrestled with over the years. And I like merchandise. Merchandise is good. Sometimes you make more merchandise than you do the payoff. Yeah, I'm into merchandise.
Yeah.
So when we get through this interview, let me leave my phone number with them. If anybody wants anything, tell them to call me. I can ship it right to them.
Yeah. Is there any time a fan has seen you in public and got super surprised and or excited?
Well, back in the day when you're on TV all the time, when I was on, I was on Atlanta TV probably from 1970. When I finished my first territory thing in 1974, I did that for about 2 years, and Jerry Jarrett was booking Atlanta TV. And he called me because he knew who I was from Tennessee. And he called me and asked me to come to Atlanta. And when you're on TV all the time, a lot of people know you. But now being off TV, you don't have much the publicity that you used to have. Now, I've done some Impact TVs lately. I've done some pay-per-views for them. And that always helps out a lot because somebody will come up naturally at every show, say, I saw you on Impact, or I saw you on the pay-per-view. Or I've done several of those. So being on those TVs really help you because people watch those TVs. Wrestling is a great show to watch. People are watching it everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. Who is your favorite horror character and horror movie?
My favorite what character?
Horror.
I don't know. Tell me that one more time. Favorite what?
Favorite horror, like scary.
Oh, horror. Okay. Oh, I guess it'd have to be Jason Friday the 13th. Yeah, I liked him on the first one, but after they did 25 movies, he kind of didn't get scary anymore. First one, he was pretty scary. He'd probably be my first one. Yeah.
Yeah. What is generally your favorite music to listen to in your spare time, like backstage?
Well, I'm an old timer guy, and I like classic rock and roll. Bob Seger is my favorite artist. I like Bob Seger. I like Lionel Richie, and I've got some Christian groups that I like to listen to. Christian music, gospel music. So I kind of a combination of everything.
Mm-hmm. If a movie was made about your career, who would you want to play you?
Well, that would probably be a short movie, but I would probably want Rey Mysterio to be me without a mask on. He would probably be me because I've done the stuff that he's been doing for a long time. He does it great, though. I have to say that he probably does it a little better than I can do it. But I would love for him to be me.
Yeah. If you got to choose the stipulation for your match, what stipulation would you choose?
I like regular matches. I like I said, I'm not into the hardcore stuff or cage matches or death matches or anything like that. I just like I like a one fall, maybe 15 or 20-minute time limit, and that just a regular match with no special stipulations in that thing. Now, every once in a while, if I'm in a title match, I've had the U.S. Junior title 10 different times. So if I'm in a title match, I might want a no time limit match or something, or if it's with a real good opponent, or no DQ match or something. But
Yeah.
I really don't do a lot of those kind of matches anymore. I just do regular matches and regular time limits and stuff.
Yeah. What has been the funniest thing a fan has said to you before?
Oh goodness. Well, this goes on for 100 years. Every wrestler can probably identify with that. If you're standing out there watching a match, or you're getting ready for a match, and you're dressed out in full gear and getting there ready to go, and a fan comes up and says, "Are you wrestling tonight?" That's probably the funniest thing, because there you are in full gear standing there, and I tell them, I say, "No, I just dressed out and came down here to watch the show."
Yeah. What has been a best fan compliment you have received, either at like a show or convention or out in public or anywhere?
Yeah, well, being a good guy most of my life, 99% of my life, I probably get a lot of fan appreciation. They'll come up and always tell me what a good match it was, or they respect what I'm doing at my age. Not many guys are doing this at 74 years old. And
Definitely.
like I said, I'm still doing it 1 or 2 days a week, and I try to give every promoter his money's worth. I know I'm old, but I know that I can't go in there and just lay around and do anything. I got to go in there and do what I'm told to do. So, and that's a good thing, because I'm still getting bookings at all different parts of the territories or the areas. So, I try to give them their money's worth. So most of the fans appreciate what I'm doing, and I've had fans come up. Matter of fact, just recently, I had fans come up and want to buy my boots and tights, and
wow.
I sold them to them as fast as I could. So that's pretty complimentary when they want to buy your boots, especially when they're old and kind of worn down.
Yeah, for sure. Which wrestler has given you the best advice and or compliment?
Well, when I first got into business and really got in it with the big name guys in '73, a guy named Danny Ducek. Probably nobody. He had a brother, Frank Ducek. They were big. They're all probably passed on and gone now. But he came up to me and told me that he was an older guy at that time, so he had been around and he knew what it was about. He told me, "Save all you could, do everything you can now, because one day all this will be gone." And he was right. Your age gets you, your health gets you. You're not. You can't move around like you did at one time, or whatever the case might be. So you got to plan for the future. And he told me that. I listened to him, and that was some great advice he gave me, because it's 100% true.
Yep. Do you like being a heel or babyface more in wrestling?
I've only healed, gosh, maybe 10% of the time in my life. I probably had 12,000, 15,000 matches, and I probably only healed in 10% of them. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm small. My moves are baby facious moves, with the drop kicks and the head scissors and different things like that. But I'm even if I go to wrestle, if a promoter calls me and says, "I want you to come wrestle my champion," and he's a baby face, I'll do a babyface match. I'll tell him, I'm not a bad guy. I'm not going to pull hair, all that kind of stuff. I'd rather go out there and just give him a good, solid wrestling match. He does his stuff, I do my stuff. Boom, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Was there ever a time in your career you ever got kicked out of a wrestling show you were wrestling at?
No. No, because like I said, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I know everything now is guarantees. If you go to a show, you're already guaranteed what you're going to get. And there's no qualms about it. So I've not really had. I mean, you're always disappointed. When I was full time in the territories, you're always disappointed when you got a check at the end of the week because you always thought it should be more. But I never. I knew the promoter had to make money too, and they had to do the TVs and do that and all those sort of things. But basically, I've never been. I'm not hard to deal with. So really, I've never been kicked out of anything or anybody mad.
Yeah. What would you do if a crowd member came out of the crowd and tried to attack you or anything?
Well, that has happened before. That's not it. That's going to always happen. Somebody's always going to be, and I don't think when these things happen to guys like me, I don't think they're mad or trying to get at you. They're just showing off in front of somebody. They're trying to be silly or just trying to get some attention on themselves. But if they do, you have to defend yourself. I mean, it's all you can do. And I'm not a tough guy. I'm not a shooter by no means whatsoever. But I do know enough to take care of myself if I need to.
Yeah. If you could wrestle and be signed to any company right now, what company would that be?
Well, everybody would love to go to WWE. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. I mean, I worked 5 years for Vince McMahon, just on the southern end. It was WWF at that time. I worked for them and made a lot of money, and they were very, very good. But I worked for Impact. They pay really, really well, and they treat you like gold. So I would love now at my age, if I probably love AEW or Impact. Impact would probably be my favorite one to go with. But I would love to do a show for AEW or WWE. Love to go back one more time and do one for WWE, just so people would see me on that TV. Blake, one thing, and I hope I don't overcook my grits here, but when I'm on Impact TV and these independent promoters see this, they want you. You know what I'm saying? You're on TV. And they see that, and I'll get calls during the thing, say, I saw you on TV. Can you come work for me? So if you got on WWE or AEW or Impact or even Ring of Honor, whoever has that big TV out there, I mean, it would be great. I'd take any of them, but I love working for Impact. I worked for them, 3, 4, 5 different times doing TV and stuff, and always been good to me, and I really enjoyed working for them. A class act group.
Yeah. If you could, what has been your most favorite wrestling company you have wrestled for?
Gosh, I've wrestled probably for I don't know how many different wrestling groups. There's several. Like I said, Impact was good, WWE was good, Georgia Championship was good to me. Mid-South, I worked for Bill Watts out at Mid-South in Louisiana, in that territory, in Mississippi. They were good. I worked for the Fullers over here in Southeastern Continental. They were good. I've not worked for I never worked for an organization that wasn't good to me. Again, I wasn't main event guy. I was just kind of an underneath guy, just setting the atmosphere for the show, first, second match, whatever the case might be. Wasn't up in that big money bracket. What I knew about that, but all these groups have been real good to me. I'd work for any of them at call anytime.
Yeah. Would you rather join DX, NWO, APA, or BWO?
I might want to do the D-Generation X, because Road Dogg is a good friend of mine. I wrestled with him several times, tag team. He's an Armstrong. He's Armstrong from up here in around the southern area. So probably work with those guys. And I was tag team partners with Shawn Michaels a couple times in Louisiana back way before, when he was just Shawn Michaels. We were just young kids at that time. So I'd probably like to be with those guys. Yeah. And Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. I see Kevin Nash occasionally. Saw Scott Hall before he passed away. So I wouldn't mind being with those guys, either one of them. But D-Generation X is just a good group of guys.
Yeah. And they're funny. all their
Yeah.
stuff that they do.
Yeah. Road Dogg's very good.
Mm-hmm. What about, would you rather join the Four Horsemen or Evolution?
Four Horsemen. Because I knew Arn and Tully real well, Barry Windham, Ric Flair, of course, Ole Anderson. I worked with those guys 100 times. They're on all on that Georgia Championship TV tapings. That was part of a Crockett promotion that was in Georgia Championship. Those guys were great. I still talk to Arn occasionally. I see Tully occasionally. See Flair occasionally at the Fan Fest over in Charlotte and different places. But
Yeah.
they were some of my favorite guys.
Mm-hmm. If you could have any band or singer perform your theme song, who would you want that to be?
I'd have to have Bob Seger, or maybe Leonard Skinner, Swing Sweet Home Alabama. That's
Ooh,
my
yeah.
music. The one I come out to. That's my ring music, Sweet Home Alabama. Even if I go to different places, people still know Sweet Home Alabama. So I
Yep.
have to get Leonard Skinner or Bob Seger to do one of those.
Yeah, the Sweet Home Alabama one would actually be pretty good.
Yep.
What is the least favorite wrestling move to have happened to you?
Well, you're talking about nowadays, or are you talking about just period?
Yeah, and period. Yep.
Well, I would probably think the worst thing that would happen would be figure four, something to do with your legs and your knees. Everybody has bad knees after a while, especially at my age right now. So I'm real cautious on my knees. We got good knee braces and knee pads and stuff like that. But I try to stay away from anybody doing that. And the worst move that if a guy does this to me, he'll have to shoot with me is that German suplex. I don't like those things.
Oh,
Those things are
yeah.
dangerous. And I got a bad neck as it is over the years of taking all these crazy bumps. And if a guy wants to do that to me, he's just about going to have to do it because I'm not going to help him. I'm not going to let him if I can help it.
Yeah.
Dangerous move.
Yep. What has been the hardest move you have tried to do on an opponent before?
I would think a figure four leg lock. Now, I put that on Ric Flair on TV years ago, and that's the only person I've ever put it on, the first and the last. I think I've never, because I wasn't too good at it, but I finally got it on him pretty good. And I thought he was going to give up, but he never did. But that would probably be, if I could do one and master one, that would probably be it.
Yeah. If you could take any signature move from any other wrestler right now and use it as your signature move, which one would that be?
I'd probably take Stone Cold Stunner. That's a good move. I like that move that he does. And I did a move the other night, first time I'd ever done it in 73 years or in 54 years of wrestling, a Canadian pile driver. I did that on a guy. I didn't think I could do it. I thought it's here. The opportunity's there. I did it. It was great, beautiful, work, perfect. And I got a 1-2-3 pin. So that might be one I need to perfect.
Yeah. What gets you hyped for a match that you are going to be in?
Well, it's like I told you, I get excited about all of them. It doesn't take much to hype me up for it. If they call me and say, "Hey, I want you to come," at my age, I'm excited to the fact that they still want me. That's exciting to me. And if I go, my adrenaline's pumping as soon as that bell rings because I'm ready to get going. So it doesn't take a whole lot to get me excited about this because I still love it.
Yep. What is your favorite thing to do after all your matches?
Go home. I like to clean up. I'm still from the old school. I try to find a shower, wash off if I can, and I head back home. I don't hang around. I used to be when I was younger, the first one at the show and the last one to leave. Now I'm usually the first one at the show and the first one to leave. So usually when my match is over, which I never did that before, used to when I would do my matches, I would hang around and do that, but not anymore. As soon as I get through, I'm usually cleaned up and when they do that last intermission, the gimmick tables are gone. I usually head home.
Yeah. What has been your most favorite venue you've wrestled for?
Oh gosh, there's been several good ones of those. Uh, I got to wrestle at the ECW building, the Hardcore building, for Tommy
Oh,
Dreamer over in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, not too long ago. I did two of those shows. Uh, gosh, I really love it. There's a place in Atlanta. Matter of fact, I'll be there next Saturday for GCW called Center Stage. That's a big place, and the Civic Center here in Birmingham. Any of these big places like that is always great to go to because it usually has big crowds and the facilities are really super nice and all. Those are kind of my favorite places.
yeah,
Did a lot of those. Did a lot of those civic centers and major auditoriums when I was full time territory and all.
yeah, I bet. Has there been any time you have accidentally broken out of your wrestling persona?
Accidentally broken what?
Out of your wrestling persona?
Uh, Not really. Not really. I'm Mike Jackson, Action Mike Jackson. That's what I do. That's who I am. I don't. That's my real name, believe it or not. I
Yeah.
did when I first started in 1972. I wrestled as Mike Garcia. I had a real
Oh,
dark tan and I had a head full of hair at that time, and I did that. And I thought after about maybe even not even a year, I thought if I'm going to get any publicity off this or notoriety, I need to be Mike Jackson, my real name. So my real name is Mike Jackson.
yep. How did you get the Action nickname? Where did that come from?
Somebody gave me that name. I don't know. After a match one time, one of the commentators, I did some moves and something. He's that's actually Mike Jackson right here now. So and that just stuck, and I've been using that for probably the last 15 or 20 years, I guess.
Wow. Yeah. Have you ever gotten embarrassed in a wrestling match due to a mistake or anything?
Well, yeah. When something goes wrong in the match or something, or you really mess it up, or you screw up something really, really bad, that hasn't happened very much because, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I'm a professional, and I know how I'm not a wrestler. I'm a worker. If that makes any sense to you, Blake, and I hope that makes sense to the people listening to this podcast. I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing. And I don't make many bad moves. And of course, everybody does now. And I learn stuff every time I go out there, it seems like. But I don't have not too many embarrassing moments. My tights never came off, or my straps never broke down, or whatever the case might be. So far I've been pretty lucky. I probably shouldn't say that because my next match my pants will probably fall off or something. Probably shouldn't have said that.
Yeah. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
What has been the scariest / most dangerous incident in your wrestling career?
I do a suicide dive sometimes. I don't know if you've ever seen me do that, but I do it. I
Yeah.
used to do it over the top rope. Now I do it between the top and the middle. But I did that at one time, all set, ready to go, made the big dive. Nobody was there. So I hit the floor pretty hard. So that's pretty embarrassing when you do that. I just wasn't looking at what I was doing, paying no attention. I was caught up in the moment, didn't look, took off, ran, jumped, and there was nobody there. So you hit the floor pretty hard. That's pretty
Yeah.
embarrassing. Now that was an embarrassing moment.
Yeah. What has been the worst you've gotten injured, you would say?
Well, I've had 2 or 3 good injuries. I've had several nitpick injuries, pulled muscle, stitches, black eyes, things like that. I got my teeth knocked out a couple of times. But the worst injury I ever had was separated shoulder. I got a separated shoulder, and I've had knee surgery on my left knee one time back in 1988. So I've had a couple of pretty bad injuries, but nothing like that shoulder separation. Guy clotheslined me. I went down to the mat, hit the mat, and when I did, separated those tendons from the shoulder, and that was pretty sore for several weeks.
Yeah.
That was the worst one.
What would you say has been the worst pain you have caused on an opponent before?
I probably haven't caused a whole lot of pain on opponents because, like I said, I'm pretty smooth and pretty easy to work with. Not too stiff. So I don't know if I've ever hurt anybody. I never have done that intentionally. Now, I've dropped I did I was wrestling a guy called the Ultimate Dragon, not the Ultimo, but the Ultimate Dragon. And I went to stomp him in the nose, and I did stomp him in the nose. And that got him pretty good. So that's probably the worst one I've ever done.
Yeah. Mistakes happen, but,
Yep. Well, it's wrestling. It's like I tell guys all the time, they think, it's that easy. This is wrestling. If you can't take it, Walmart hires every day. Get your job, get those carts out of the driveways. And, Walmart's hiring. This is a tough job. I mean, tough job. And you some of these guys should have been in it back in the day when you wrestle guys like Lou Thez, Buzz Sawyer, and Ox Baker. Guys like that, it wasn't all that running ropes and jumping and flipping and flopping. It was wrestling. It was hard. It was catch can type wrestling. It was get a hold on to it. Wrestle Ole Anderson back in his day, Gene Anderson, those guys. It wasn't drop kicks and head scissors and all that. It was get a hold to get on the mat. And I'm gonna grind you down. So wrestling has changed a lot over the years.
Yeah, for sure. If back in the day, or now, you got told you couldn't medically wrestle for the rest of your life, what would you do?
I would say that I was the luckiest man in the world because God had blessed me and I got to do it longer than probably most anybody ever had. I wouldn't have a bad attitude about it. If I never have another match after this Saturday, I've been blessed. I look back on it. I've kept scrapbooks and I've got everything I've ever done in this business in scrapbooks. I would go back and look at those books and just think, man, what a lucky guy I was to be able to do it this many years, meet as many good people as I met, travel as many places as I've traveled. So I don't think I'd be bitter a bit. I think I'd be happy.
Yeah.
I'd be sad, but I'd be happy.
Yeah, for sure. What is the longest you've had to stay out of action for wrestling?
Probably when I had knee surgery, probably about 4 or 5 months. I had arthroscopic knee surgery, and it was probably, I would say that lasted about at least a couple of good months. Yeah, it took 4 weeks to recover, and then the recovery time to let it heal back up real good. So I'd say 2 months, maybe 2 to 3 months at the most. I haven't had many bad injuries, thank goodness. Just a few nitpick injuries.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the wrestling championships and achievements you have won so far in your career?
Yeah, I've been U.S. Junior Champion 10 times. Been the United States Heavyweight Champion, several tag teams. I've tag teamed with different guys over the years, won some tag team belts. Mostly single title. I like single matches better than tag team. Now, I do some tag teams, but I like single matches better because I don't want to mess up something for somebody else. I just rather go out there and do it myself, my way.
Yeah.
So I've won several championships and trophies over the years. Been inducted into several Hall of Fames. So nothing like not WWF, but NWA and some of the local ones in the South and different places around there, independent groups. But I've been fortunate, been blessed on that too.
Yeah, for sure. That was my next question. Do you feel like you are worthy enough to be part of a wrestling Hall of Fame?
Well, I always think so. I mean, if you ask me, I'd say definitely. But I didn't do a lot of stuff for WWF. Like I said, I did the Southern shows, and I took guys to the show with me, and wrestled some guys. But I was not where Ted DiBiase or Jake the Snake Roberts. I wrestled all those guys, but I wasn't in a situation where they were to draw money and all. So I probably don't deserve the WWF Hall of Fame or nothing like that. I'd love to have it, but when the NWA inducted me in their Hall of Fame, that was probably the biggest one I've been in. Largest one, because that covered in the beginning when wrestling first was going on. When I started, NWA was the promotion. There was other promotion, but NWA was the largest governing wrestling body in the history in that time period. So when I went into that one, it was pretty big. But I appreciate all of them, even these independent groups that asked me to come into their Hall of Fame. That's an honor. If they think that much of me, I definitely think that's an honor for them to have me in there.
Mm-hmm.
But if Vince McMahon called and asked me to go to the WWF Hall of Fame, I'd go. Or WWE now. Yeah, I'd go.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you should be in the Impact Hall of Fame as well.
Well, I haven't done a whole lot for Impact. Like I said, they've been good to me. I've wrestled all 5 or 6, 7 shows for them, and if they ask me, I'd be honored. But I understand it's a young man's game now. I mean, I'm not gullible enough to believe that they ought to put some 20-year-old guy that can jump all over the world and do great matches out and put me in there, because I've had my time. It's his time, and I understand that. But if Impact calls me back, and they do call about every 3 or 4 months and give me a good booking, I'm excited. Like I said, get back on that TV or do a pay-per-view, be a part of that pay-per-view or something. But I'd be honored. Impact was very good to me. They pay well, they treat you well, put you up at the finest hotels, feed you good. So it's a first-class organization. If they wanted me in the Hall of Fame, I'd love to be in it. I'd be honored.
Yeah. Who are 5 wrestlers you would put into the WWE Hall of Fame that are not in there yet that you think deserve it?
Well, now see, I lost you. See, if I go back to my older days, there's several guys that probably never got there that probably should have. I mentioned Alan Martin. He would be one I would put in there. Johnny Swinger. Now, he was there for a while. He did a few. I think he did a lot of shows with him. I'd put probably Johnny Swinger in there.
Yeah.
Is Rey Mysterio in there?
Yeah, in 2023, actually. Yep.
Okay, I was going to say, if he's not in there, he definitely got to be. He's one of my favorites. But I would go back and pick some of those guys. You like your Ole Anderson and Arn Anderson and those guys. Of course, Flair's already in there, but some of those guys that was back on TBS a long time ago paved the way for a lot of those guys to be in there. So I would pick probably some of those guys from that era.
Mm-hmm. What are 4 words you would describe your wrestling persona?
Quickness, longevity, worker, and ability. That'd be my 4 words.
What are 3 things that annoy you the most in wrestling?
Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but I will, because there's probably young guys out there wrestling that, I get annoyed when I go to independent shows and people have all these belts on, especially world championship belts. That bothers me more than anything, because when I was with WWF, WCW, Georgia Championship, they had world champions. But they were major places, wrestling in front of 16, 17,000 people. That was a legitimate world championship. When I go to an independent show and there's 100 people there, and a guy weighs 110 pounds and got a world championship belt on, that's not good for our business. That's the way I think about stuff. That would probably be my biggest pet peeve, is to go to these places and another one would be to go to these places and find guys that were fans last week. Now they're in the wrestling business this week. Like I said, back in the day, it was hard for me to get in this business, man. It was really hard. I tried and tried. I just about leave crying sometimes because I couldn't get a break. Now a guy can be trained in 30 minutes and he's in the ring wrestling. That's why guys are getting hurt. That's why guys, that's why half the world knows more about wrestling than the wrestlers do. That would be my biggest pet peeve. We're killing our own business by the stupidity that we do.
Yeah.
In the old days, you'd get hurt for that. I was on Atlanta TV many times and see guys get stretched. I mean, really stretched, because they did something stupid to hurt the business. Our business should be a secretive business, but our business is not. It's been put out there from everything now, books, matches, guys, people don't care. Back in the day, I'll give you a perfect example. Wrestling 2. You remember Wrestling 2?
Yep.
Mr. Wrestling 2. He wore his mask in the building. He showered with his mask on. He left with his mask on. He never stood in the dressing room and let people know he was Johnny Walker. When he retired, he told them, I'm Johnny Walker. But until then, he never gave away his persona.
Oh, wow.
You know, that's not what we have anymore. You know, Bill Watts was good about that. Bill Watts was probably the best promoter I ever worked for in my life, if you know who he is. He was great in the Mid-South Territories back in the day. He was strict. He would fine you for so many different things. If you didn't protect, you had to dress like a wrestler. You had to be professional at all times, or you were going to get fined. We don't have that anymore. It's going away. Too many wrestlers, not enough fans. So those are my 3 pet peeves.
Yeah.
And I probably made a lot of enemies right there. So if my phone don't ring off the hook, Blake, you're going to have to call me some more.
Yeah. What are 3 things that you like the most about wrestling?
Well, I do like the fact that there's guys out there doing independent shows that are trying hard to keep wrestling going. It helps me. It helps other guys. I do appreciate that. I just would like to be more protective of the business, you know. But that I like the fact that they're doing that. I like the fact now that everybody's guaranteeing money. That, you know, it's just not go and hope that the crowd draws, because a lot of times they don't, but they guarantee you. I like the fact that most of the shows I go to, probably 95% of them, have good equipment. The rings are good. You know, it's safe. It's a safe environment to work in. So that would probably be my 3 good ones.
Yeah. If you are upset during or before a match, what do you do to help yourself calm down?
Well, it would be according to what I was upset with. If I was upset with a guy that I was working with, you know, I may not work with him. I mean, you know, if a guy came drinking, or I thought he was doing dope or something like that, as dangerous as this stuff is, contrary to popular belief, I probably wouldn't work with him. Or I'd go to the promoter and say, look, this guy's got a problem with me, or he's drinking, or he's doping. And, you know, I'm not going to go out there at 73 years old and get hurt, you know, get paralyzed. So I'm not working with the guy. And, you know, and most of them would respect that. Most promoter would say, yep, you know what, you're right. But that would be probably what I would do if I was upset about money or something. I think I'm a grown man, and I would think whoever's paying me is a grown man. We would sit down and talk about it. You promised me X amount of dollars. That's what you need to give me. You know, that would probably be my things I'd be looking at most.
Yep, for sure. If you could wrestle anywhere in the world, where would that be?
I never went to Japan. I thought I was going to Japan one time with Dick Murdoch, and something happened and I didn't get to go. So I would like to make a week's tour over there one time just to say I did. So I've been to Puerto Rico. I work for Carlos Colon and his group over there in Puerto Rico. But I would love to go to Japan one time just so I could say I did it.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's like a lot of wrestlers' dreams to wrestle there.
Right.
Have you ever wrestled or done anything in Wisconsin before?
I've never been to Wisconsin. Never have. Now, I've done some things in Michigan up toward your area, but I've not done anything in Wisconsin ever. Iowa, Wisconsin, Montana, nowhere up in there as far as I've never been. I had a few times I were booked in those areas, but something happened, I didn't go. So no, I have not.
What has been the best fan art you have received in your career?
Fan art. Well, I had a fan one time that was a pretty good artist. Speaking of just art, was pretty good art. Drew some pictures of me and my tag team partner and sent them to me. I still have them. I kept them here in my scrapbook. So that would probably be one of the nicest things I've ever had. And I retired a couple of belts and put them up. So I guess that would be. Of course, that's not fan art. That'd be my art. But those are pretty things that's pretty pretty cherishable to me. Old pair of boots, those kind of things.
Yeah. Which wrestler has the best wrestling gear ever, in your opinion?
Oh, wow. Gosh, some of these guys dress up so good. Shawn Michaels has some really nice looking stuff. Ric Flair's robes. I've seen several of his robes go for thousands of dollars at these fan fests he sells. I don't think anybody dressed a whole lot better than Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Wrestling too. I know his robe went for like $2,500 at a fan fest.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What is one top unforgettable moment in your wrestling career?
Well, I'll give you an old one. Now, of course, there's a lot of young, your first match, you've got to always remember your first match, where it's at, how exciting it was. But when Impact called me, that would probably be, that was, 2020 when the COVID hit. I wrestled in I think the second weekend of March, my first night with Impact. When they called me, now that was exciting because I was 70 years old. And, for them to call me and ask me with all the talent that they have there, it was great. And then when I came back to the dressing room, I don't know if you saw it on Impact. They showed it on Impact. I had a standing ovation. All the wrestlers were there and give me a standing ovation. And I thought, what did I do? I didn't do anything that I normally do. But they was, I guess, because I was so old and they thought I couldn't do anything. But I did the suicide dive out of the ring. I did a hurricanrana. I walked the top rope, did all that stuff. And I guess it impressed them a little bit because they were all standing out there to give me high fives and clapped for me. I couldn't believe it. So that was probably one of the best moments of my life.
Yeah, because when I seen you on Impact for the first time, I was like, whoa, it's actually Mike Jackson on Impact. I was surprised.
I couldn't believe it either.
Yeah. Are you the type of wrestler that eats certain meals before your matches?
No, I usually don't. I drink a little protein powder and an energy drink kind of thing. But I don't like to eat before I go out there because I'm afraid I might throw up. I don't do that.
Yeah.
So what I do is I usually eat probably sometime that morning or maybe a lunch before I go, and then I usually eat afterward going home. I don't like to eat before or during. You go to some of these shows and they'll put out pizza and all that's good. And like Impact will feed you, but they'll feed you early. Feed you early in the day, like maybe 2 or 3 o'clock. And the wrestling doesn't start till 7 or 8 o'clock. So you got 4 or 5 hours, to digest everything. But I don't like to eat anything heavy right before I go out there because I try to stay on the move as much as I can.
Yeah. What is a go-to beverage most of the time for you?
Well, if I could pick any kind of drink, I don't drink alcohol. I would probably drink a Diet Mountain Dew. But I do like an energy drink occasionally. I have some stuff here that I work out every day, and I have a guy at the gym that's a nutrition guy that gives me some good energy drink. And I usually take some powder of that and put it in some water before the show. But that would be my 2 drinks. I love Diet Mountain Dews. Too many. I drink too many.
If you could get any tattoo, what would that be?
I don't have any tattoos. I know I'm living in the past. I don't have a single tattoo or a single piercing or anything. But if I had a tattoo, it would probably be a Bible verse. God's good to me, and I'd probably put something on there like maybe John 3:16 or something. That would be a good Bible verse to put on. So when I'm dead and gone, somebody could see that Bible verse. Yes.
Yeah.
Or the cross, the 3 crosses with Jesus in the middle. That would probably be a good tattoo if I was going to get one.
Yeah, that would be good. What is your favorite current and old theme song from any wrestler, current and then old?
I don't listen to a lot of the songs that they play. I just don't really pay any attention to them. But I like, of course, Sweet Home Alabama. I mean, that's the current one, I guess, that I would use, or the old one, whatever you want to call it. But I like some of the music that the WWE guys have. Now I don't listen. I don't watch WWE anymore. Honestly, I don't watch it. I watch Impact just because I'm on it sometimes, and I do watch Impact to see what's going on there. But
Yeah.
I do listen to some of the music. Some of these shows, they'll have like John Cena's music or Randy Orton's music or something. And some of these guys will come out to it, and sometimes they just play them before the show. Just while the people are getting ready for the wrestling. And I like some of those shows. I mean, songs, I guess you would say.
Yeah. If you could go back and revisit any year of your wrestling career, what year would that be and why?
Well, I started in 1972. I got my first big break at Christmas night of 1973. So I would say probably going back to 1973 and get my first full time job. Christmas night '73. I didn't start full time there, but that guy gave me my first break. And then a few weeks later, I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, with my tag team partner, and we started full time. So I'm assuming that I'd probably like to start back when I started full time, knowing what I know now.
Yeah. If you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Uh, Handle with care. Take care of me. Yeah, be
Yeah.
careful. Handle with care. That'd be mine.
Yeah. What are some things you are still are striving to achieve in wrestling that you have not achieved yet?
Well, you know, there's not a whole lot I have not achieved because I have done pretty much everything I would love to. But one thing I'd love to do would be wrestle at Madison Square Garden. I would love to do a match at Madison Square Garden. That would be my, when I was growing up, it was the Civic Center here in Alabama. Then when I got to be over in Atlanta, I wanted to go to the Omni in Atlanta and wrestle for those guys. So I would probably say I always would love to go to Madison Square Garden and done a show.
Yep. What is the first thing you think about doing to your opponent as the match starts?
Locking up. A lot of people don't do that anymore. Collar and elbow, referee's hold, whatever you want to call it. Lock up and then go to some kind of move.
Yeah.
Guys don't do that. They don't even train guys to do that anymore.
Yeah.
When I was coming up, that was the first thing you learned. Lock up.
Yeah. What would be your dream animal of having?
Animal?
Yeah.
Oh, let me think now. Animal. You mean if I could take one to the ring?
That was going to be my next question, but yeah.
So if I could take any animal to the ring, what animal would I take? Wouldn't be a snake. I tag team with Jake the Snake a couple of times. I told him, don't get that snake around me. I don't like snakes. Probably a tiger. I'd like to take a tiger to the ring. That'd be pretty awesome. Walk down the aisle with a full grown Bengal tiger.
Yeah. What is your favorite wrestling quote?
Quote. I don't know if you remember Freddie Miller that did some he was WCW Georgia Championship, but he would always quote at the end whenever he would do interviews with everybody, and he would he was going to be at the Omni, and he would list the matches and all. And when he got ready to finish it up, he would always come out with a "Be there." I love that. I love that. It always had the fans excited about going to the show. Be there.
Yeah. If you could come up with your own quote, or if you do have one, what would that be?
Oh, let me think here. I notice a lot of those guys nowadays have those quotes, don't they? Everybody's got something different they say. And I never really thought of a quote. I guess I probably need to think of one, but I don't have one. I just don't have one.
Yeah. Would you ever forgive your opponent if they injured you?
Yes, I would. I mean, unless it was intentional. If I thought it was intentional, no. But
Yeah.
unintentional, yes, because things happen. You know, guys get hurt. I tell these guys all the time. We train. We have schools over here that, and I do seminars. Do a lot of seminars, and I tell those guys, it's not when you're going to, if you're going to get hurt, it's when you're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt in this business. I mean, it's the inevitable. I don't care what people think about it, if it's this, that, or the other. You're falling 20, sometimes 8, 10 feet. You're being slammed. People, you don't always get your feet down. I mean, there's just so many things that just the least little thing. You got guys jumping off the top rope on you. You know, on your you're doing frog splashes on you at 250 pounds. You're going to break a rib. You're going to break a shoulder. You're going to break an arm. Something's going to happen. So it's the inevitable. But if it's not on purpose, it's just like in a football game. If a guy clips you, that's on purpose. But if he accidentally falls on you, that's not on purpose. So yes, I would forgive a guy for doing that, but not if it was on purpose.
Yeah. If you could manage any wrestler right now, what wrestler would that be?
Rey Mysterio. I would love to be on a show with Rey Mysterio and do something with Rey Mysterio. He just amazes me. And this is not a little man's game. Wrestling now is a big man's game. You look at these guys, even guys are 225, 230, 240. Then you get up to 270, 300 pounds, and these guys move like cats. I mean, they're fast as lightning, and you got Rey Mysterio at probably 170, 75 pounds that's winning Royal Rumbles because he's so good that people can believe in him. He's definitely gets my attention every time he's out there. If I thought he was on WWE, I'd watch it.
For sure. If you could have anyone manage you, who would you want that to be?
Well, I was good friends with Bobby the Brain Heenan before he passed away. If you remember Bobby the Brain. I would love for him to manage me. He was a brilliant man. And my favorite manager of all time, J.J. Dillon, with the Four Horsemen. Ooh. He came up with so many great ideas for those guys. He was a brilliant man. I see him occasionally at Fan Fest. His health is not real good now, but he does come to some of the Fan Fest. And I tell him every time I see him what a great honor it was to work with him. Great man.
Yeah. Is there any background or inspiration off your wrestling persona as a whole?
What I would like to do when I leave this business, and I know that I can't do it anymore, and I retire and I'm fully out of it, I would like to just tell the younger generation to protect what they're doing, protect not themselves, but protect the business. The business is only as good as the guys are. And if they'll protect this bit, it's made me a lot of money. It's made me a lot of friends, a lot of places. I've traveled. I've done almost everything I've ever wanted to do in this. I don't have much of a bucket list left, but this business has been good to me. So why would I go out and try to hurt what's been good to me? Protect the business. That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm. If you had to change your wrestling name, what would you change it to?
I would probably go back to my original name when I started as Mike Garcia, the Flying Spaniard. That's what I was first introduced as in 1972 in June. Like I said, I'm got Indian. I'm Indian blood, Cherokee Indian, and I get real good and tanned, dark skinned, and at one time I had real dark curly hair, so I could pass for that. So probably go back to my Spanish roots and go with Mike Garcia, the Flying Spaniard.
Yeah. If there's anything you would change about your wrestling style, what would that be?
Well, if I was a lot younger, I could go back to doing moves that I was doing a long time ago. Over the top rope, suicide dives and things like that. But with my age, I'm a little bit grounded more than I were. But if I could go back and do some of those moves, I'd be happy to. Like the Mike Bailey, the Speedball Mike Baileys, the things that they do, and some of these guys, Ace Austin, some of those guys are doing some of those great moves. Trey Miguel, I got to work with Trey Miguel the last time I was at Impact. And those guys are so talented. I'd love to go back
Yeah.
and be able to do what some of those guys are doing now.
If you went for your finisher or signature move and it didn't work, do you have a plan B to do it right away after?
No. The old adage as I grew up, again, if you miss a move, do not do it again, especially right after that. You just go to your next move, whatever the case might be. Maybe come back to it later, or maybe just throw it out of the resume totally. You don't go back and do the same thing if you messed it up the first time. That's the way that was old school training, teaching right there.
Mm-hmm. If you could dump any type of food and beverage on your opponent, what food and beverage would that be?
Well, if I didn't like them and I really wanted to mess them up, I'd probably just get the greasiest, meatiest, sauciest spaghetti I could and pour all over them. That'd probably be what I would be thinking. And a good bottle of milk. That ought to be a good combination.
Yeah. So say you are injured and you got a once-in-a-lifetime call asking if you could work for WWE, AEW, Impact, New Japan, or any company. Would you take up that once-in-a-lifetime offer?
Oh yeah, definitely. If I was physically able and I knew I could go perform to the level that they wanted me or they expected me to do, absolutely. Yeah, I would take it in a heartbeat. I'm an independent contractor, so if anybody called me, I could go anywhere. I mean, I don't have a contract with anybody or anything, so I could go anywhere with anybody. So I'm independent. Yes, I would definitely take it.
Yeah. Would you rather wrestle Rick Steiner, Scott Steiner, or both?
You know what? I have been on many shows with those. Those guys are good friends of mine. I see them fairly regular. If I had a choice, I wouldn't want to wrestle either one of them, because if they wanted to kill you, they could, and there's nothing you could do about it. They're like a Kurt Angle or a Buzz Sawyer. These guys can know how to wrestle. They know how to tie you in knots if they want to. But they're great guys, and if I had a choice, I would probably take Rick Steiner, because I knew Scott when he first got in the business, and he was dangerous. But now he's a lot smoother than he was. But Rick Steiner was always a pretty good worker. So I would probably pick Rick if I had to take one of the two. But they're both, like I said, great guys and good workers, great workers.
Yeah. What has been the worst weapon you've got beat/hit with in a match?
I've been hit with a few chairs, a few broomsticks, a few brass knucks occasionally. But I guess the worst thing would probably be a steel chair. That'd probably be about the worst thing. I've had a few of those over the days.
Yeah. What are your hobbies other than wrestling?
I love fishing and softball. That's probably the two biggest hobbies I have. I love to go fishing, and me and my brother go fishing a lot, or when he can, and and I love to play softball. I played major softball, traveled all over the country playing ball as much as I have wrestling. So those two are probably my favorite things to do.
Yeah. Who would you put in your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers?
That would be 4 of them, right?
Correct.
I would probably put Ric Flair, Johnny Swinger, Alan Martin, and Bullet Bob Armstrong. That'd be my 4 heads that I would put on the top of the mountain, because those 4 guys have been an influence on me and helped me out over the years. So I would think that they would be the ones I'd want to talk with.
Yeah. Who would you consider as a brother and sister in wrestling?
Well, probably the closest friend, I know I mention his name a lot, but probably the closest friend that I've got in this business and over the years is Johnny Swinger. Swinger's a good friend of mine. And if it was a girl wrestler, I don't know if you remember a girl named Selena Major. She trains all the WOW girls. Her Bambi was a wrestling name. She wrestled for me for many years. She was great. She was a very, very good friend. Spent the night here at the house of me and my family, many times. But she was a class act and always a good friend. I don't see her as much as I used to, but those would be my two that I would trust for my life.
Yeah. If you had one last match, a retirement match, who would you want your retirement match to be against?
It had to be Rey Mysterio. I know I say his name a lot, but if I have to quit and had to go, he would be the greatest of all to take me out. I'd feel like it'd be an honor to go if he put me out.
Yeah. If you could wrestle or have a segment with any actor, who would that be?
Actor. I like Harrison Ford. I like all his action movies. So I would probably go with Harrison Ford. Maybe Sylvester Stallone, but I like Harrison Ford. I like the way he's acting. And I like Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah. If you could guest star in any TV show and or movie, which would it be?
In a TV show. Well, my favorite TV show is Andy Griffith. Of course, all of them are dead and gone now, but I would love to go back with Andy Griffith and be in Mayberry, be a segment with those guys. Be great. Barney and Andy.
Yeah. When you were growing up, were you more of a shy, quiet kid or outgoing, loud, and excited?
Kind of both. At high school, I wasn't very outgoing. I didn't play a lot of sports. I did play a little. I played a little year of basketball. I went to college and played baseball. Loved baseball, but I wasn't really. I was kind of in between. I wasn't the loud guy, and I was the most popular guy, but I wasn't. Hidden in the lockers either. Just the average Joe. Nothing special.
Yeah. What helped you cope out of being that like shy and stuff to knowing that you'll be performing in these big crowds of people? How did you cope out of that?
Well, first of all, I never dreamed of that. In the first years I wrestled, we didn't have these big crowds because I was with these small independent group. But it was good. It was a good learning experience. I would never change that for anything because I learned. The first big night I had was at Boutwell Auditorium, which is the big city auditorium here in Birmingham, Alabama. That was Christmas night when Nick Gulas of the NWA gave me a match. That was in front of over 5,000 people. Now I'd been used to wrestling in front of maybe 25 or 30, sometimes not even that many. But then you go in front of 5,000 and you're definitely nervous. I mean, I went to the Omni in front of 17,000, the Superdome in front of that many. But you're definitely nervous. But once you get going, once that bell rings and you get some contact going, get a good bump or two in you, you're back to normal. You're worried about it's kind of like a baseball player's up to bat and everybody in the crowd's cheering against him, but he just focuses that out and just, does what he does best. That's kind of what I would do.
Mm-hmm. So how do you keep up going all around walking on the top rope, the move that you do?
Well, people ask me that all the time because that's my signature move, I guess. I call it old school. When people start hollering old school, I get ready for it. When I was going to college, before, like I told you, but I knew I would need this one day. I was going to college and I was working for the Alabama Highway Department. It was a construction group and we were putting up bridges and they had these beams that were going across it before they put the bridges on there. And they were probably 50, 75 feet above the ground and they were only about probably 6 or 7 inches wide. And they had to have readings on these bridges to see the height of them. Nobody would walk those things. It didn't bother me. I said, give me those rods. I'll walk this thing. And I just started walking. So balance was not my problem. And one day, I don't remember when it was. I have no idea. But I guess the Undertaker got me thinking about it. He takes a step, he walks up, takes a step, comes up. And I thought, well, I got pretty good balance. and I just started walking all the way. So I just walked all the way around from all four corners, and that's kind of my signature move. And I just never had a trouble with balance, even when I was a young kid. Flipping over, landing on your feet, and stuff like that. So I've fallen off a few times, but most of the time I don't. If I got a good opponent, good strong arm, got his arm twisted pretty good, he stays pretty straight right under me. So I'm pretty safe, I hope.
Yeah, because that's impressive. With the age that you still active today, how do you keep yourself as healthy and physical that you are to keep in the wrestling ring?
Well, I work out every day. I belong to a gym. I go 7 days a week, unless I'm out of town or I can't do it. I go every day. I go Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, about at least 2.5 to 3 hours a day. On Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I'll go probably 1.5 to 2 hours. I try to eat good. I have to watch cholesterol, things like that. When you get up to be age, blood pressure, you got to watch those things. So I eat fairly healthy, not as good as I should sometimes, but I eat fairly healthy. But the main thing is, Blake, without a doubt, I'm blessed. God is good to me. He's given me this longevity. I try to use wrestling for Him. I try to lead guys in prayer. I know when I go to a wrestling show, it's not a church show, but I try to show respect to God, because God has given me. And if I ever get to thinking that it's all me and it's all me in the gym and it's all the food I eat and the exercise I do, God may take it away from me. I believe in the good Lord. Jesus has been good to me, and He's given me this health to do this. And again, I know I can't do it many more years or whatever, maybe even months or days, but He's given me a blessed time, because I don't know but one other wrestler that's my age that's still doing this. So I give all the credit to God.
Yeah, definitely. What was your reaction when you got asked to wrestle for NWA?
Well, the NWA was Nick Gulas at that time, and I had tried to get in with him, and only did I get in. It's a funny story. The only way I got in was that me and my tag team partner were wrestling. To go back a little bit further, there's an Alabama Boxing and Wrestling Commission. I don't know if in Michigan if y'all have one or not, but we have one here that you have to buy a wrestling license or boxing license for. And back in '72, when I was wrestling, we couldn't afford a license, so we would just go to these shows and do them and hope that nobody shut us down. We do them, get out, and be done. And the promoter in Birmingham was Nick Gulas, NWA, the big time. And he paid the taxes and he did all the stuff he was supposed to do. So he got tired of us. So I had tried to get with him, and he wouldn't even talk to me. He would just shun us out the back door. So he sent 2 of his people to watch one of our shows, just as spectators, to see, who they could blame and who they could get, for not paying the taxes and all that stuff. And when those guys went back to Nick Gulas on Monday night at the auditorium, they said, Nick, we got all the information you need, but there's 2 guys that you need to hire. They're good enough to be with your organization. It was me and my tag team partner. So he calls us in, hires us. We moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and we're wrestling full time, every night back in the Tennessee territory.
Yeah.
So that's how I got started.
Yeah. What is one core memory or match of yours that you'll never forget from the NWA?
NWA, probably one of the greatest matches I ever had. It's got to be with Ric Flair. In 1984, now that was NWA, that was Atlanta Championship Wrestling, but I was still in the NWA. And there was probably 30, 40 guys there that he could have picked from. And they picked me to wrestle him in the Schick match. It was called the Schick Match of the Week. George and Schick, the Razor Company, used to sponsor a match, and they were sponsors for the show. And they did a match with him. And, TV matches in those days didn't go but about 4 or 5 minutes. We went almost 10. They wouldn't stop it. It was so good. And, like I said, I didn't say a word. I shut my – I'm wrestling Ric Flair, the world's champion. And I knew who he was. And I mean, he knew who I was because he would, Flair was the kind of guy that would pick his opponent. He would go through a dressing room and lock up with guys. And if they couldn't lock up, he thought, if you can't lock up, you don't know how to work. You're no good. So he knew who I was, and he picked me evidently. And we had an unbelievable match. I'm telling you, I've got it on tape. Matter of fact, it's on one of my DVDs I sell. Matter of fact, it's on all my DVDs I sell. But it was an unbelievable match. And like I said, I did stuff to him. I thought I was going to beat him a few times. Somewhere during that match, I thought, I'm fixing to be the world champion. But it was a great match. It was one of the, so that's got to be my most memorable match with the NWA.
For sure. Who was your favorite wrestler you got to work with or against in the NWA?
In the NWA?
Yeah.
My favorite to work with as a partner or so would be probably Lynn Rossi. Lynn Rossi helped me a lot of times when I couldn't get a good booking. He would always take me under his wing and help me. And probably two of the best, and you again, you're young, you may not have heard of these names, but two of the best NWA guys back in the 70s and early 80s was Frank Morrell, wrestler as the Mighty Yankee, and he ended up his career as the French Angel, and Pepe Lopez. Now they're both dead and gone, I believe now. I know Pepe is. He was killed in a car wreck. But those guys were just above. I mean, those were those guys, I'm telling you, that were doing stuff 30, 40, 50 years ago that guys think they're doing now, that they didn't invent this stuff. These guys did. And I had some great matches with those guys, and they were up and down, head scissor. I mean, they taught me so much. But the two guys that actually really smartened me up to this business of what I needed to do and how I needed to do things and how I needed to pace myself was a guy named Joe Turner, wrestled as Joe Sky for a while, and a guy named Woodrow Bass, who wrestled as Jim White. These two guys were a tag team, and they set me down, slowed me down, and said, if you want to make anything in this is how you got to do it. And, they taught me not, just to run everybody. I could do 100 moves, but how many moves would the fans remember? So they slowed me down and said, hey, these signature moves that you're doing are the ones that you need to move. And so they really taught me how to be a worker instead of just a wrestler.
Yeah. Who is one wrestler from the NWA that was in there when you were that you'll never forget?
Oh, gosh. It would have to be Lynn Rossi, because when I first started going to wrestling in 1967 or 68, when I first started going down to watch wrestling, Lynn Rossi was the John Cena of the day. He was the main event guy. And when I got into the NWA, he was one of the bookers, and he ran a town. And even if I never had a booking on that night, he would always book me. So he would probably be my most memorable. He just died not too long ago, but he would be the one that I would remember more than probably anybody.
Yeah. How did the wrestlers and workers treat you at NWA?
You mean with respect? Respectful? Yeah. They were, because they understood what we were. I mean, we were there, and we were there. Now they call us job guys in those days. Now they call us enhancement talent. They call us anything you want to call us, but we were there for a purpose, and they respected that. Especially the guys that were good workers. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of George South.
Yep.
Tommy Angel. Those guys were great workers. Alan Martin, Randy Barber, Paul Garner, Jason Walker. Those guys were great walkers. And I hate to say names because I'll leave out somebody that's probably listening to this podcast. Those guys were great workers. Jimmy Backlund, Broadway Joe, Malcolm. Those guys were good work. And these guys respected us because they said, hey, if we wrestle these guys, we're going to have a good match. And if you don't have a good match on TV, then, then they frown on that stuff. So we were well respected. And nowadays, I'm more respected now than I ever have been before. I'm really impressed when I go to these guys and they sit down and say, can I pick your brain, or can I ask you a question, or how was it like in the old days? You know, they're so respectful to me. I don't have anybody that's ever not just super going out of the way to be nice to me. Hey, you sit in my chair. You here, let me move your bag for you. You know, hey, I'll get up and you sit down. I mean, it's just so nice to me, and I appreciate it so much. I think I've earned it, but you know, everybody doesn't feel that way sometimes, you know.
Yeah. Who is one wrestler you never got to get into the ring with in NWA that you wish you could have?
Well, you know what? I don't know if there's too many NWA wrestlers I did not get in the ring with. I only wrestled Sting like 1 or 2 times, Barry Windham like 1 or 2 times. You know, but I was in there. I was there for 14 years. You know, I was there from 1974 to 84 before it turned into WCW. And I wrestled every Saturday and Sunday there. I don't think I missed. I probably didn't miss a few weeks out of all those 14 to 15 years. So I probably worked with everybody at least one time or another. Of course, now I was a babyface. I didn't get to wrestle all the baby faces all the time that I probably would have liked to have wrestled. But I did get to wrestle like the Rock and Roll Express, the Fantastics, you know, people like that. I would have loved to work with Steve Kern. I never got to work. He was one of the fabulous ones, but he never came to there when I was there. But he was such a talent. I would love to wrestle him. And the one I really wanted to more than any when I was with WWF and I never got the chance was Curt Hennig. Curt Hennig was just an unbelievable talent. You know, I would love to. Yeah. I wouldn't care what we did or how long we went. I would love to just locked up with him one time so I could tell people I did. He was unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely. How did it feel to wrestle for the current NWA in 2022 when you wrestled Colby Corino?
Oh, it was great. They called me and told me they were doing a junior heavyweight tournament and wanted me to come over. And I had known his dad, Steve Corino. Matter of fact, I did my shoot interview with Steve Corino in Charlotte. High Spots has that on I think in their warehouse. But Colby was just a young kid at that time, but I didn't know who he was. And I was on a couple of shows with him in Charlotte, different places and I watched him. He was great talent. And I didn't even know who I was wrestling. I just went. They just said, hey, there's about 8 or 9 junior heavyweights over here. We're going to do a world championship. We want you to come over and be one of them. And I was. And when I found it was with him, man, I loved it. We had a great match. It was about 6 or 7 minutes, but it was action packed. I had been to Nashville in a lot of years. That was where I lived when I was full time. That was full time territory. Nashville was where the office was. But going back there and wrestled him again, a great match. Took care of me everything was taken care of. The people treated me like gold. Wish they'd call me tomorrow. I'd go back and work with them if they called.
Yeah. So what was it like getting to work for the AWA?
AWA, that was a good group. Now, I sent a lot of guys. I didn't work with them a whole lot, but I sent guys there. I had some guys working for me, and I sent them up to Minnesota, to Canada, to Las Vegas, and different places like that. But I did work a few shows with them, and they were good. That was Vern Gagne. That was the Gagne group. Blackjack Mulligan was the booker. Some of those guys, I can't think of everything. Everybody else was there. Blackjack Lanza was there. I think that's where Curt Hennig was there, and Nick Bockwink on that group right there. I did not work much with them, but when I did, I really enjoyed it. Again, they took care of you. They treated you well, took care of all your expenses. So, yeah, they were a good group to work with. Like I said, most of those groups that I worked with were always first-class acts. You know, never had any problems with them at all. What they said, they did.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask, what was it like to share the ring with this wrestler? And you're just going to tell me what was it like to share the ring with them and what were they like? So what was it like to share the ring with Buddy Wayne?
Buddy Wayne was hilarious. He might have been the funniest guy I've ever been in the ring with in my life as a tag team partner or an opponent. When my first job, when we were living in Nashville, you know, we started out slow like everybody else does. We were broke. We didn't have any money. We didn't care. Buddy Wayne, my partner, Tony Ledoux, Buddy Wayne, and Rick Sanchez all had a room at the Motel 6, $6 a night, and the four of us stayed in that room. And Buddy Wayne was one of them. And man, he kept us in stitches all the time. But being in the ring with Buddy, he was a good wrestler. His son, Ken Wayne, good wrestler. He wrestled here in the Continental as one of the Nightmares, I believe, and did a great job. But yeah, Buddy Wayne was a good talent. Again, he was old school. He didn't do all that high flying stuff. He just wrestled, and people loved it back in those days. That's what they did in those days. But Buddy Wayne was good.
Yeah. What about Afa and Sika?
About who?
Afa and Sika.
Afa and Sika, I did work with those guys in Atlanta, Marietta, Dothan. They were good workers, good guys. They wrestled. They were big guys, and they were over like $1 million because the big, the native looking guys and the hair, and they produced many great talents out of that Pensacola area. But working with those guys was easy. They were safe. They were good guys. Very good guys.
Kendo Nagasaki.
Kendo Nagasaki. I think I worked with him in Tampa. I think he was in the Tampa area. But when I went to work for Tampa with Eddie Graham and that group, he was great. I mean, those Japanese guys are really, really good. He would, train well, discipline well, very honorable. Took care of you. Yeah, good worker.
Chief Thundercloud.
Yeah, that was Mike Valentino. Now he was good. I didn't work with him, but one time I remember that at Boutwell Auditorium on a Monday night. But he was a babyface too. But he was really good, smooth. He had that Indian gimmick with the head feathers, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, he was really, really good. I liked working with him. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Great Kabuki.
Which one was that?
The Great Kabuki.
I wrestled him in Atlanta, and I was scared to death. I'm gonna be honest with you, because he was scary, but he was so easy. It was unbelievable. I mean, this guy was a talent above all talents. How he carried all that green stuff in his mouth for 8 or 10 minutes and not choked to death, I have no idea. But he was very easy, light, a great worker. I had a good match. As a matter of fact, I saw it on YouTube. Somebody put it on YouTube the other day, and I watched it back. But he was really, really good. But very scary looking, and he could kill you if he wanted to. But he took care of me like $1 million. It was just like going home.
Oh wow. Animal and Hawk.
Woo! Those guys, when they came to Atlanta, now I don't know if you remember this. Animal came first. He came to Atlanta and wrestled like a construction worker, a little pair of short blue jean shorts. He was massive. He didn't have a clue about wrestling. He was an absolute bouncer. That's what he was. And they put him in there, but he came for Ole Anderson, and Ole Anderson liked those tough guys, and finally one day Ole called me over to the side. He said, "Look, you're fixing to work with these guys. You're going to be married to them. If you don't teach them how to work, they're going to kill somebody." And I thought, well, that's fine, Ole, but I'm the one they're killing. Me and Randy Barber. It seemed like every week. But I wrestled those guys probably Mid-South, Atlanta. Gosh, I don't know how many different places. But here's how much they respected me. I was on tour with Georgia Championship, and we were in. Let me think. It was in Baltimore, I think. And I was rooming with those guys. It was me, a Hawk, and Animal in a room. And I started to get on the floor to sleep on the floor. And a Hawk made me sleep on the bed, and he slept on the floor. I said, no. He said, man, you're sleeping on the bed. I'm sleeping on the floor. And then a good story is Hawk passed away. Animal came back and wrestled with a group here in Birmingham. And Paul Ellering, the manager, Paul Ellering, was supposed to be his partner. And Paul didn't show up for some reason. Paul wasn't able to make it or something. And Animal went to the promoter. I didn't even know it. Went to the promoter. I'd already wrestled and been done. He went to the promoter and said, I want Mike Jackson to be my tag team partner. So I went out and tag team with him. And when it was over, he asked me for one of my T-shirts. Now, of course, you can't tell him no. I would like to charge him $20, but I didn't. But anyway, I gave him a shirt, and he said, I want to wear it on the airplane home. He respected me. He said, they told me, he even told me, he said, we put you on our video, our DVD that's out now. He said, for what you guys have done, thank you. Because I taught him like what the guy that was Jim White and Woodrow Bass and Joe Turner did for me when they set me down and said, look, this is good, but it's not what you need to be doing. This is what you need to do. And naturally, I didn't think they were telling me the right, but they were. And when I showed them that they could do this, that, and the other without hurting somebody, it was good for everybody. And they respected that. And I worked with those guys so many times. And, I sat down right before Animal died, and we had a long talk over in Georgia somewhere. We were sitting at a fan fest, and we sat down, and, he just thanked me for all the crazy bump, because they were stiff, boy. I mean, you had to hold on for your life. When they attacked you, they attacked you. If they clotheslined you, they clotheslined you. If they slammed you, they slammed you. It wasn't none of that easy stuff. I mean, they didn't know any better, but they were taught, and they ended up as one of the greatest tag teams of all time.
Yeah, for sure. So what was your reaction to getting asked to wrestle for WCW?
Well, that was a funny thing when nobody in the business, none of us knew what was going on. When Georgia Championship Wrestling was coming to an end, and that we just noticed a lot of guys with different suits and ties were in that place. We knew something was up. So WCW, our Georgia Championship was turning into WCW. So we just continued to wrestle for those guys, thinking it was the NWA and Georgia Championship or whatever, but it really wasn't. It was World Championship Wrestling. So working for those guys was great because the pay was still good. The talent was great. So we were just, all we did is just, that's the good thing about not being a very important person on the show. They don't tell you a lot of stuff. You just do your job and go home. So you're not there to draw money. You're not there to do interviews. You're not there to put people in the seats. You're just there to do what you got to do. So we just continued to do what we were doing. And for us, it was very easy. It was a transition for a lot of guys, but not for us. We just went from one group. Somebody signed our check, and the next day somebody else signed it. Who cared who signed it as long as they signed it?
Yeah. Who was one wrestler you never got to get into the ring with that you wish you could have in the WCW?
WCW. You know what? Again, I was there for like 4 or 5 years, so I pretty much wrestled everybody there. I don't know of anybody on WCW that came in that I didn't wrestle with. I think I did pretty much everybody.
Yeah. So the first time you got asked to wrestle for GCW, and then when you got there, what was it like there? How were the workers and wrestlers, and what was the company like?
I love working for GCW. Brett Lauderdale is a class act in my book. I wrestled for him 5 or 6 times. He's got me booked twice in November. These guys are a little bit different in some ways, but they're great in all ways. I mean, he pays well. I think the first match I ever did for him was Chicago. He flew me to Chicago, and, here I am, a nobody, no big star, but he flies me to Chicago, puts me in a great match. He flew me to New York. I've wrestled for him in Atlanta several times. I'm going back this next Saturday in Atlanta. I'm at WrestleCade this year. He's got me at WrestleCade. I've wrestled in Alabama. He's done a couple of shows in Huntsville, Alabama. I love working for those guys. They treat you good. They pay well. It's again, it's a little bit different environment. It's more of a R-rated show. It's for the fans. There's not a lot of kids there, but that's his show, and he does well. And I understand. I've been told that he is the #1 independent wrestling organization in the United States. And if anybody draws a bigger crowd than he does, I haven't been there. Every time I've been there, it's been packed. Wow. And I got to wrestle the other night with Nick Wayne. Nick Gage. And he was my tag team partner. And he was a hardcore specialist, so we didn't do hardcore, just did wrestling. But he was great. And I've wrestled several of their guys, and I wrestled Joey Janela in New York, and it was on the on the YouTube. Had a great match with Joey Janela. Matter of fact, I went through a table. Never crashed through a table in all my years. When Brett said, "We're putting a table out there, you're going through," and I'm not the one on the bottom. I'm on the top. I'm the one on top going through the table, so I'm in good shape. Joey Janela was the one on the bottom, and I thought, man, I don't know, Brett. I've never done that before. He said, "You'll do it," and I did it, and I went through it, and nobody got killed. So, I respect him. He is a great man to work for. He calls me when he can, and I understand he's got a lot of talent that goes with him to different places. And you know what? He's got some great. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his shows, Blake, but he's got a great show. I mean, his show is action packed, man.
Yeah, his shows are good. I like GCW. The wrestlers that you wrestled for GCW, did they go? Were they stiff or snug? Because they are used to like the more hardcore stuff, and you are not used to that stuff. Did they go more soft on you when they wrestled you?
The matches I had were great. The first night I went to Chicago, there was 5. It was a scramble match, and Nick Wayne was in there, and I can't think of Jordan Oliver. I think was in there, and there was a few other people but I'd never seen these guys, so I didn't know who they were. But they were great. No, they were easy. And I wrestled, like I said, Joey Janela. Had an unbelievable match with Joey Janela. I've seen him on TV, but I never met him before in my life. But had a great match with him. And then we did a tag match with I don't know the 2 Mexican guys' names, but they were they were unreal. Those guys were great. And it was a 6-man tag, and it was easy. No, they're not snug, stiff, or nothing. I mean, everything is just kosher. I mean, I loved working for those guys.
Yeah.
I had a match with Marco Stunt. You remember Marco Stunt with AEW?
Yeah.
Yep. That was one of my matches with him at GCW.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During your Impact, how do the wrestlers and workers treat you?
Very respectful. It's like I said, when I did that first show with those guys, I didn't know any of those guys hardly. I knew Johnny Swinger, and I knew Tommy Dreamer and a few of them, but probably 95% of those guys I didn't know. And what I didn't know was that Dreamer had them all made them all come in and watch the match with me and Johnny Swinger. And I didn't know that they were watching that thing. But when I came back, the girls were hugging me, the guys were high-fiving me, and like I told you, standing ovation. They showed that on Impact. I was overly impressed. Matter of fact, I was flattered to death that they would even think. I wouldn't even think they would watch the match, much less do that. But they treated me with unbelievable respect. It's like I tell guys that I train, and I think they feel the same way. Somebody had to pave the way for us to come. Somebody, if I go back to the old days of Lynn Rossi and Tojo and Bearcat Brown and all those guys, they paved the way for me. Bob Armstrong. So I got to respect those guys. So I think they thought, hey, this is Mike Jackson. He's paid his dues. He's paved the way for us to be on TV. Hey, give him some accolades. So they treated me like gold. I mean, I'm overly impressed with them. I love them. I wish, again, I know I can't work with them all the time because they got all that great young talent. But if they ever need any old talent, I hope they call me.
Yeah. Who is one wrestler you never got to get in the ring with in Impact that you wished you could have, or even still could?
Oh, gosh, there's so many of those guys at Impact now. I did get to do a 5-man scramble with Speedball Mike Bailey, which I think he's great, and Angels, and the Japanese boy that I think he just retired or went home or whatever, but I can't think of his name. But the other Kushida, however you say his name.
Kushida?
Those guys, I did a scramble, so I got to work with all those guys. I got to work with Trey Miguel. I got to work with Swinger. I got to work with the big Indian guy from India. I'm not working with all Crazy Steve. I was in there was doing this thing with Crazy Steve. You know what? I would say anybody that I haven't worked with there, I would love to work with them because all those guys are good. Josh Alexander, Macklin, Man, those guys are so good. Eddie Edwards. I mean, I remember those guys back in the day. Those guys, I'd work with any of those guys and be just tickled to death. Like I said, I keep a scrapbook. I'd put that in my scrapbook and put a star beside it. Hey, I got to work with Eddie Edwards or Josh Alexander, because those guys are great. They wouldn't be where they are today if they weren't good.
For sure. So you took part of the Impact Reverse Battle Royale in 2022. So what was it like getting to share the ring with Shark Boy, David Young, Chase Stevens, Slash, and all them others?
Yeah, well, I've been on a lot of shows with Chase Stevens and not Shark Boy, but the other one you mentioned. Who was the other one you mentioned?
David Young.
David Young. Now, David and I go back a long way in the Georgia day. We did a lot of independent shows together. But that was the reverse battle royal where you started on the floor. You had to get to the ring. Well, I never got in the ring. I did all my stuff on the floor. But hey, it was great. I don't know if you ever saw that. I don't even know if they showed it. I don't know what they showed on that thing. But I walked the entire guardrail with the big Indian wrestler. I can't think of his name. I can't think. I don't know what his name was. But so I spent most of my time on the guardrail. I walked from one end of that guardrail almost around the whole building.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I seen that. I watched it.
So I never got in the ring. The Shark Boy, I don't guess I ever got in the ring with him or we ever even touched. But with the other guys on the floor, everybody got a pretty good. I got a hand on everybody at least one time.
Yeah. What is one thing you would tell your fans?
Buy my merchandise. come up to the merch table. But just the fact that I just appreciate them. I mean, I really do. I mean, I really appreciate the fact that they've supported me all these years. And again, on a serious note, they bought a lot of my stuff. I give my phone number to a lot of them. They call and check on me. They send me Christmas cards, and I could be with a better group of people. And everywhere I go, the good thing about it is it doesn't matter if I go to Chicago, if I go to New York, people know you. People know you. People keep up with wrestling. They know who Mike Jackson is. They know who Shark Boy is. You don't have to. There's no place you can go to wrestle that somebody don't know who you are. So that's just overwhelming to me, pleasing to me.
For sure. So I got one last question for you.
Sure.
Do you have any advice for me to become a wrestler?
If you want to be a wrestler, and I tell guys this all the time, you got to go to the right person to train you. If you go to a show, this happens around me all the time. Guys go to a show and they get with the wrong people. If you're going to train, and guys ask me this all the time, and I have a certain fee. This is what you pay. But my deal with training somebody is pretty simple. If you come to me and you want me to train you as a professional wrestler, I will. But you pay me what you pay me. You don't pay me in advance. You pay me lesson per lesson in case you decide you don't want to do it. I've had guys do one lesson and say, I don't think I can't do this. I quit. And they didn't lose a lot of money. If you pay me a lump sum of money, you lost a lot of money. But here's my deal. And if a person won't do this for you, I wouldn't let them train me. I will make your money back. You train through me. You do my 10-week lesson or 10-lesson program. You pay each time. No pay, no play. You do that. No checks. You do it just up front. Pay each time. And then when you get through your 10 lessons, I will book you because I run shows myself. I will make your money back. That's my promise to you. I'll sign a contract with them. I'll make your money back. And then you're on your own, or you can stay with me. Either one they want to do, or do both, whatever they want to do. I don't care. But if a person wants to be trained, he needs to go to the right people that are drawing good crowds, that look like, first of all, they know what they're doing, and not going to go in there and start suplexing you the first day you walk in there. I mean, you need to start from a lockup. There's 5 basic moves in wrestling: headlock, a lockup, headlock, arm drag, hip toss, snap mare. You do those. Everything revolves around those 5 things. Learn those 5 things. Learn how to take them. Learn how to counter them. Learn how to do all that, and then start putting moves together. Start running the ropes. Start doing all the other stuff. Suplexing and stuff comes into me about lesson number 7 or 8. Learn how to work first, and then learn all the other stuff. And then make sure you got somebody that's honest. that'll help you get bookings to pay you back. People call me all the time and say, I just got trained by so-and-so. Will you book me? No, I didn't make any money off of you. Let him book you. Well, he can't book me. Then why did he train you? You know, that's my philosophy.
Thank you. And thank you for taking your time out to do this interview. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on here.
Man, I appreciate you calling me, Blake. And please, if I could leave my number, or if you put my number on the thing, anybody wants to call and talk to me, I love to talk to fans from everywhere. And I do have T-shirts, DVDs, pictures. I'd love to, send you some of my stuff. So if you don't mind, if you could tell them this phone number, give it to them, or let me give it to them, or however you do it.
Yeah, I'll put it on the bio or on the caption of when I post this, and I'll put it on there.
Yeah, just anybody can call me anytime. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just thank you, guys. And the last thing I want to tell you is, again, that God is good. God has protected me all these years. And the greatest thing I ever did was when I gave my life over to the Lord. And that's why I'm still doing this today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you. Have a good rest of your night, sir.
Yes, sir. You too.